Hello, and welcome to Alcohol Free Radio. I'm your host, Chris Becker, and I'm excited to have you join us. Whether you're new to the amazing and growing alcohol-free community or someone who is already familiar, we hope you enjoy this program. This is where you can hear from some people that we think are making a real difference, whether as brewers or producers of amazing beverages, influencers in the community, authors, storytellers, and I'm sure more. We aim to break it down and bring it all together. Our goal is simple: to build awareness about this great community and help make alcohol-free fun, easy, and tasting great. So here we go. Enjoy. Hey everybody, it's Chris Becker and welcome to Alcohol Free Radio. I'm excited for the episode you are about to hear with Brooks Addington, the founder of Töst, an interesting beverage and brand inside the category, innovating in a lot of different ways. So a bit different than what you might have seen with kind of more traditional brands that are emulating alcohol. So looking forward to this conversation. Hey there, this is Chris Becker and welcome to Alcohol Free Radio. I am excited to introduce everyone to Brooks Addington, the founder of Töst, and hear a bit more about his story, both from a business and founder's perspective, but also from a non-alc beverage perspective. So welcome, Brooks.
Thanks, Chris. Great to be here. Appreciate the invite and the time.
Yeah, thanks to you for finding the time and making it. You're just up the road a piece. We're here in Eastern Connecticut. You're up in Vermont. Tell us a bit about kind of your origin story, how you got into the non-alc space. What were you doing before that? And then maybe lead in a bit to the story of Töst.
Yeah, thank you. It's a long story. It might take up more than a lot of time, okay. So I'll try to give you the abridged version. But my background is financial services. Early in my career, primarily in Asia. I spent about 14 years in Japan in institutional finance, and always was interested in various entrepreneurial opportunities and different things and consumer products. About 14 years ago, it's hard to believe that long ago, I started dabbling into the consumer product space,
right.
With a couple of startups, that weren't directly related to food and beverage, but other consumer products. And then, through that, I was introduced to the Töst team pre-launch, still in development. They were looking for really direction on the business. Right. I came in as an advisor in 2016 prior to launch. And then became CEO and launched the company with the team in early 2017 and took control of the company from an investor standpoint in 2019. So not your typical origin story, but really for me, I met the team and saw the product in 2015 and was absolutely blown away by the beverage itself, the branding, and then the opportunity was very clear. Having spent a few months digging into it, looking at the direction of the company and where we could go as an advisor, it was clear to me that there was this huge opportunity, right. In this alcohol-free, non-alcoholic space, call it what you will, where there was just a need for product. And so we were pretty early on in the program, and have certainly, enjoyed and been excited about just the growth in the space. In the last few years, much less, the last 7, which I'm pretty shocked to think to myself that we are year 7 coming up here in a couple of weeks. We launched in early April of 2017.
Wow.
So it's been quite a journey.
For sure. And I think for some of us, that's certainly longer than I've been involved. Can you take us through that story for those first couple of years and then leading into with the pandemic and on-trade and on-trade kind of shutting down for all intents and purposes, and the category itself still finding its way in the off-trade channels, whether 3-tier or non-3-tier. How did you guys navigate that?
Yeah, so when we launched in 2017, we didn't have any money. We were running on shekels, and sort of classic story. So it was out of the back of the car, and we'd done a soft launch. We had a bunch of customers we knew liked the product. So we hit that, and it was a mix of on and off, a lot of specialty grocery, some sort of iconic on-prem in New York, And we fed off of that. And literally it was just, driving around New England, sort of Western Mass and Southern Vermont, hitting stores the old fashioned way.
Yep.
Early days, and I would be doing demos and people would come by and be like, was this alcohol? And I go, no, 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 it's alcohol free. And they'd be like, well, why would I drink that?
Right.
That's,
Yeah.
what's the point of that? I'm a Scotch drinker or whatever. And it's sort of that Mad Men era, which I think is behind us a bit now. So that was kind of the scene early days. There was interest. What we knew was that people liked the taste of the product,
right?
And we knew that when we were gaining stores, we weren't losing them,
right?
Our price point fit really well into it. We got a lot of, or are you, an elevated sparkling juice? And we were saying, no, we're not that. We're trying to create something very different. But we benefited from that, and really were able to. We got into Whole Foods in that winter of 2017 on an in and out. They bought 100 cases. We ended up selling 200. They came back for more.
Yeah.
And that's when we knew we were kind of off to the races, and just kept growing the business with small distributors, store by store. Didn't really have any big retail chains. Didn't have a lot of money, but we were selling product. It was selling through. We were very focused in the Northeast. And then we're seeing interest around the world. I mean, Korea called up and said, hey, we like your product, and someone out in the Pacific Northwest. So we started expanding a bit. COVID hit, and that really, for us we were never a DTC brand.
Yep.
It's expensive trying to ship, as liquid in bottles is not a cheap endeavor. But it was very clear to us even in March, that something was happening. So we made for us, a fairly significant investment into DTC, improved our pricing, changed our model a bit, upgraded our website, all by like May, June, and really kind of went after that and saw massive growth in the gift industry, and also saw massive growth in, all these corporates had all this HR money, and we knew this, right? I mean, we're sort of corporate people. So we knew, like, what are they going to do with all those offsite money and all those parties? What are they going to do with all that money? Well, they're going to spend it somewhere. Yeah. And so there was that whole gifting business that absolutely exploded.
That's so interesting.
People were sending product out. Right. So we had a product that's elevated, that looks elevated, that was sending the message of that premiumization, but wasn't a huge price point, and then wasn't alcohol.
Right.
And no one wanted to be, it's very difficult to be sending bottles of wine out to 1,000 people in your company.
Yeah. Well, they do it. It's interesting because I come from kind of corporate consulting world in financial services, and I remember the after work. You'd go out after work, you'd go to the pub behind the building in the city or whatever, and if you didn't drink, you could kind of quietly grab from the bartender whatever it was you wanted, like no duels, but just pour it in a glass, and I'll come to the side of the bar, just give it to me. If they didn't want to have a big conversation about it, or no big deal, they're drinking soda water or lime. But when you're all working from home, sitting in your office, and the company wants to have a similar event, and we saw some of that too with the gifting during the pandemic. They would ship wine or whatever to people's houses, but then the non-drinkers had to kind of raise their hand and say, well, wait a second, I actually don't drink. It's never come up before. So you had these events where people were virtually drinking together, but practically drinking alone because they're all in their respective homes. And it really opened up some of that to say, hey, wait a second, there's a better elevated experience where we don't necessarily have to send alcohol to people's houses and we can still socialize. So that was an interesting one that we saw as well.
Yeah, entirely. And I think was more, aware of their team members, their employees, or whatever we would call it, that, we're not, if they don't drink red wine, why are we sending them red wine? It has alcohol in it,
Back to your Mad Men model.
Totally.
I remember I used to work, I worked in a Big Four accounting firm, and it was the holiday season. And this is going to date me in terms of, we're talking 20, 25 years ago. And I remember these boxes all started to show up in the office, and the executive assistants were all boxing them up and putting their cards in. And I was like, what is that? And it was port. And no one was asked what they were getting. Everyone was just getting a bottle of what I assume was very expensive port sent to their houses every year, all the clients.
Exactly.
First of all, it was port, so you can imagine how long ago that was, but same idea.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, so we really saw a lot of trial from
Yeah,
that. I mean, it was a huge business opportunity for us because you were being paid to get your product in front of your
yeah,
consumer.
which is amazing.
And that was a huge win for us. And so we continue to do DTC, but we have definitely, I think that for us, we always felt like we wanted to be brick and mortar. People come to our site, we kind of encourage them to, hey, we are local.
Yeah,
You don't need to commit to buying a case. Go to this store, go to that store. We're
yeah,
very open to
absolutely.
that. So DTC, which was was not a huge part of our business, but a significant part of our business, is now becoming less so as we get out and build our network of distributors, which is a mix of the sort of the classic natural food distributors, and then a lot of DSD. We're seeing a lot of growth in that, and that's something that 2 years ago really wasn't a
Yeah,
viable option. I mean, we had a few, and maybe there was some arm twisting from some important customers to make that
yeah,
happen. But generally speaking, it was sort of like, look, we don't get it, we don't know it, we don't. It's not something we do. We don't see any future in it. And now we've got, God, I think we've got 25 or 30 states covered with DSD
yeah,
now. So we've leaned heavily into that
yeah,
model because it allows for you to go into the on-prem side, which we believe is sort of starting to really happen now.
yeah,
We're seeing that we have a nice, robust group of customers, a lot of mom and pops, but now we're getting the RFPs from the larger groups that are saying, we need to build menus
yeah,
out. We need to have options for our customers, and how far that goes, we'll see.
yeah.
But we're really pushing. We don't want to be alone off menu.
Right.
We don't really want to engage unless you're going to be on the menu and you're going to have a variety of beverages and you build an entire category around it. We want to be a part of that. We want to help you build that. But it's so critical to have different options, spirits,
Yeah,
wines, beer, obviously, so that people can come and go, oh, no, okay, I understand where I'm going now. I understand that this is something
right.
important. So, we've gone from, literally, I think we had, I don't know, 100 stores year one to, getting around 12,000 by the end of this year. So we're starting to really see that traction, and just exciting to see the growth from even stores before that were saying, like, I don't know where this stuff goes. And you've heard the
Yeah.
story, dozens and dozens of time, to, hey, we have a dedicated 8-foot set.
Yes.
We're leaning into this. This is important. So, from 2017, out of the back of the car, where does this stuff go? Why is anyone drinking it? Is this a juice, to a place now
Yeah.
where you're having, really meaningful conversations with leading on and off prem, customers about menu and placement, is pretty
Yeah.
amazing. It's been really cool to
That's
see.
awesome. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that too, and trying to help with some of the brands that we work with to kind of build out those 8 and sometimes 16-foot sections that are low and no, typically in terms of the center. They're usually adjacent to organic. And in some states, you see the THC and CBD 5 milligrams
Right.
or less as well, which is kind of where things have normalized in states like Connecticut, and others across the country. So yeah, it's that's been it's evolved quickly. I certainly, I always often say it's, when you look at Europe or something, we're talking 5+ years in terms of how far ahead they are with in-store dedicated sections. But the U.S. is closing that time gap very quickly. It's not taking 5 years to catch
Right.
up. So that's been interesting to see. It was interesting you mentioned Korea, and I guess also um, your Asian experience even before Toast. When I have, when I look at Toast, and I don't want to misdescribe kind of the subcategory, but it's not a non-alc wine, but it's a food pairing. It can be used from an experience perspective, um, whether it's tea based or what have you. How would you describe that? Because I saw it somewhat in Asia, and it seems to be a category in terms of the particular formulation that's successful in Japan, for example. How do you position that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's always been a challenge for us because what are
Yeah,
we? And as we all love to compartmentalize everything so we know exactly where it
sure.
belongs in our little
Everything has to have
boxes.
a category.
Everything has to have a category, and so they go, well, what's
Yeah,
toast? And we don't view ourselves as a sparkling tea, although tea is a part of the
sure.
beverage. The genesis of the concept was that there wasn't anything out in the marketplace. And mind you, this was, we're going back to
Mm,
2014 when it was first, in the kitchen being spun together. There's nothing out there that has, sophisticated and meaningful that you would want to have at a party,
right,
that you would feel that is elevated as a beverage.
right,
And if you have a guest over at your house or at your restaurant, why are you treating people that don't drink any differently? You should give them something as
yeah,
special. So a lot of the formulation and creation of the beverage was around this occasion.
right,
So we view ourselves as an occasion-based beverage, and we have a lot of the attributes of an alcoholic beverage. It was created to have a nose, to have a
yeah,
mouthfeel, to have a finish. Alfred Portale, James Beard Award-winning, Michelin star, Gotham Bar and Grill founder now of Portale's restaurant in New York City, pretty renowned
right,
chef.
yeah,
He was involved in the original creation, his sommelier team.
hmm,
There was something like 50 plus iterations of the product to get there. And it was all about that experience. Does it pair well with food? But can it stand on its own? Is it elevated nose, mouthfeel, finish, all these sophisticated attributes? So that's why we have tea in it. That's why we have cranberry, white cranberry in
yeah,
it. We want the tannins, we want the stringency to create that. So, we describe it really as an occasion-based beverage or a wine adjacent
right,
occasion beverage, sparkling wine adjacent product. We do see a lot of strength at those celebratory
yep,
periods, but we also get the Tuesday night, Netflix watching, during the middle of February kind of thing as well. So we do get to play as a sparkling beverage in that celebratory time, but we also get that, pairing well. I mean, sparkling wine and Prosecco are very, very popular.
yeah,
We look at it less as a champagne alternative as, more of that everyday sparkling product that you can interact with.
right,
The sparkling teas are getting quite popular. We're seeing a lot of in Europe and in Asia, and I think it's those tannins that give you that similarity to what you get in a wine, where there's that mouthfeel and that experience that leads towards that sophistication. So we are in, I think, 7 countries now. We've seen a lot of acceptance in other places. We do a lot of business in Iceland, for example. It's a
interesting.
great market. We're in Nigeria. We're in
Okay,
Mexico. Obviously in Canada, and see huge growth in Asia. I'll just throw you a quick stat. I saw this about a year ago. There was an article about Japan specifically where they'd asked a bunch of 20 somethings, do you consider yourself a regular drinker? And this was back in like late 90s.
right,
And about 27, 28% said, yeah, I'm a regular drinker. Whatever that is defined
yeah,
as, that was the answer. They did it last year, it was 9%.
yeah,
So, this phenomenon of not, of wanting to be healthier and drinking less is not, a U.S. phenomenon, and it's not a generational phenomenon either. It's Z to boom and
yeah,
everything in
yeah.
between.
Maybe for different reasons, but both generations are drinking less. Maybe some because they don't want to, and some because they can't. But
Right.
nevertheless, the results the same. And yeah, there was a couple of things I'd seen that the Japanese government was actually investing in promoting alcohol consumption because it had dropped so much and it was hurting their industry.
Well, they were, and they did that with tobacco years ago as
Wow,
well.
I didn't know that.
But their FDA equivalent came out about 2 months ago and said alcohol is
Okay.
dangerous; it'll kill
Yeah,
you,
I was.
which is a
Yeah,
huge statement.
yeah, that is, and it was interesting to see after what I'd heard before that, and then, yeah, with millennials, 45% once they're in their early 20s haven't even tried alcohol, which is interesting
Right.
because I mean, I learned all my bad habits about drinking in my teenage years. So if you make it to
Yes,
your
yes. We're
20s,
on 12 or 13 back in the
yeah,
70s.
exactly. So if you make it to your 20s, that's going to have an impact on your long-term behavior. It just has
Yeah,
to. So these are big things that are only now just being seeded into the demographics of our society 5 years, 10 years out. So um,
entirely.
what about and then your point about the adjacency and having to kind of explain what are you, because I think that's difficult, but you've obviously succeeded, and in seeing some others um, fail in that category, to be frank, but you've kind of worked through that. You talked a lot about I guess the brand and the history and the kind of the weight of of the the process of coming up with the liquid, which is, at the end of the day, the most important. I will say, from our own stats, Toast is high repeat. I think it's kind of at first it's like, what is this? Now it's very, it's attractive on the shelf. That's the other thing. It's clean, it's clear, but then the repeat on Toast is much higher than average. But getting to them to that first piece. So you talked a bit about it. Is there anything else that's kind of you've been found along the way as your journey's progressed around what you're seeing that really helps communicate to the customer kind of in as quick a way as possible? What do you got in your hands?
Trial is
Yeah.
everything. Sips to lips
Yeah.
is 100% our marketing effort. We want people to try the product because we have a very high likability, and we've tested that, and we've seen that. And we know that from our own experience and through the stickiness of our retail partners. But we also, went out and tested in consumer studies and saw that. And so, with a high likability, the best thing we can do is get people to taste it. And we do have these periods during the year where we can go on display and people, it's an under $10 product and they can go and they can try it, and that will lead to adoption. And then really we do a lot of events. And we do events of all sizes. They don't have to be big splashy media, LinkedIn posts. And so, they can be a gathering of a bunch of people that are just having a party. There's 10 or 15 people. We're having an event. We're having a fundraiser. We find that to be more valuable than the actual demo, because you walk into a grocery store and you've got whatever's going on in your life is going on in your life. And demoing new product is probably not a part of it. It's 5:00. I'm trying to get out of here. I got to get home. I got to pick up the kids. I got to, whatever it may be. I want to go watch the game. I had a bad day at work. Why am I trying this? Whereas if you go to a party and you're relaxed and someone goes, hey, you should try this.
It's a totally
and you try it and you had a great time at that party, you're just going to come back. I mean, everything tastes better when you're having fun, right? So, it's really, we like to do a lot of events. Certainly the growth of the having has allowed for a lot more trial as well. We've really seen that it's gotten easier and easier to get out to people because everyone's looking for a solution. Having this event, we need to have a non-alc. And then our price point is very attractive. We're in between, being, whatever the lower price is to being a high price. So if someone wants to adopt something or try something, it's an easy barrier of entry. If you're having an event and you're buying product for an event, it's something that it's going to have a high likability. A lot of people are going to like it. We sort of see ourselves in this evolving game as a product that will be, really global, will be highly used, is acceptable by a lot of people. And then people will be bringing in other products at other times that are higher end for other occasions. And, variety is the spice of life. We don't expect, people that don't drink alcohol to only drink Toast and to be 100% committed to Toast and only Toast forever. People might go through fads of certain products, but we want to be the product that people feel comfortable with, that they enjoy, that's there for them. And then I suspect that they're going to try other products, and maybe they want to get a competitor brand that's twice the price and have that experience at different occasions. And, that's great, because that's what we do. That's what we did with wine before, right? I mean, sometimes you drink this wine, and sometimes a special occasion, you might buy something, that's very high end. It just depends on how everything plays out.
It's like, I guess almost any industry when it's early and you've got the first early entrants are coming in kind of at the higher end of the market, creaming off the urban high income early adopters. I would have to think it bodes well for Toast, because if you're able to be profitable at that price point, as this market normalizes, as you're starting to see more options, as you're starting to see more channels, that price, you just have to look to Europe to see this. There are products in North America that are selling, the same product is selling for a third or less in Europe. So if you're able to, have the structure in place that you're profitable at the price point you're at, as this market matures, that price pressure is only going to go down as people expect more for less, higher quality at the same prices. You see that in the wine category in terms of where there's high market share at low price, but there's a lot of products that can start coming in at that space at a higher quality. So seems like the right place to be as the maturation of the industry is happening.
We want to stay under 10 until 12 is the new 10, which unfortunately may be coming quicker than we
Yeah.
want it to. But we look, it's I think everyone's feeling it a little bit. I saw a stat, not to get depressing on a Monday morning, but I saw a stat last week, or I don't know where I heard it, but that Americans now are spending more on their food than they have in our lifetimes.
Wow.
So, that's 50 plus years in my
Yeah.
case. And that's a pretty impactful statement. If you go way back to like 100 years ago, 120 years ago, people were spending 75% of their income on
Sure.
food. And we got way down
Right.
to whatever the number is, 12, 15%, whatever it is. That's going up because of all this food inflation, which is seriously real. And so, we don't see that going down. Those prices aren't going to come back. There might be some improvement here and there, but we know how it works with corporations and supply chains and the rest. So we want to be there and be a product that people can enjoy and not feel stressed about.
Yeah.
And to be accessible and to know that they can have something that's enjoyable but is still achievable. And some people will drink it every day, and some people will drink it once a week, and some people will drink it once a month, and some drink it once a
Yeah.
year. And that's like you would find in a nice wine or a San Pellegrino or anything like that. So we just want to be accessible to everybody. It's been a core value for us. Is inclusivity,
Okay.
accessibility, are two really key pieces to our strategy.
Okay.
And you sort of say anytime, anywhere by everyone, is sort of the ethos we've had for a very long time.
That's amazing. Yeah. And as I said before, but even it's high repeat and high volume. People will tend to buy. I'm from Canada. We used to call it a 2-4, 24 bottles.
Right.
We see that, and we don't see that a lot with a lot of products. So that's interesting. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I'd love to hear kind of just in terms of wrapping up. So in terms of the next 2, 3, 5 years, you touched on it a bit with kind of the food inflation. Where do you guys see, building on what you've already said, anything kind of net new or in addition to that where you're seeing opportunities or where you guys will be focused?
Yeah, I think it's a big country. We've got a lot of wood to chop. I always tell our team, don't think that we're anywhere. No one's ever heard of us. Just keep reminding yourself of that.
Yeah. Or of this
Because
category often. It's like,
or
yeah,
this category exactly. And that bodes true in a lot of places. So we want to be that product that's really got a ton of touch points on and off premise. There's a lot of work to do in the United States. We are very excited about our international
yeah,
business. To your point, look, shipping glass and making product and liquid is very
right.
expensive. And we land in other markets, higher than we'd want to
Sure.
be, which is probably what a lot of these brands coming over from Europe are experiencing. And so we even foresee potentially producing
Right.
in other areas. Um, Part of our accessibility is getting into cans.
Yeah.
You won't see cans in retail from us ever. Not our original
Sure.
products, but we are looking at on-prem
Yeah.
opportunities with cans. You can't, you don't want it. No one wants glass next to the pool. No one wants glass in a lot
Yeah.
of grab and go restaurants, things like that. So we're looking at that. We've been dabbling in that. We're actually down your way. We're at Mohegan Sun on the floor with our
Oh,
cans,
cool.
uh,
Okay.
and have had a really, really good response from them. So we're excited about that. And then I think we're working on a couple other flavors.
Okay.
We're never going to go gangbusters and have vanilla cucumber mint toast. We'll keep it within the lines of the
Right.
brand. But and then looking at potentially developing another sort of ancillary kind of more fun line as well. So
Okay.
some innovation, but Toast and Toast Rosé and our core products have a lot of growth in front of them.
Definitely.
There's a huge opportunity, and we really want to remain focused, in our messaging and our products. We don't feel like we need to create ourselves, innovate out of a problem. We don't feel like we have a problem right
Yeah.
now. So a lot of white space to go after,
Yeah.
and then we'd like to do more in Canada. I mean, as we get bigger, and this, labeling becomes in play, and we have a complicated product,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we deco
Different
our
countries.
bottles and all of that. So how we balance all of that is that. But we're in blocking and tackling
Yeah.
mode, Chris. I mean, it's really just how do we expand, grow, maintain quality, maintain touch
Yeah.
points, maintain messaging,
Yeah.
and then, welcome a lot of competition into the marketplace.
Right.
And I think it's an interesting space right now because there is, we're part of a new board member of ANBA and excited to be a part of that. And that's a great organization to help promote and grow and help smaller companies and the rest. And so, all boats, all
rising tide.
The tide rises, all boats rise at the same tide. I can't remember Kennedy's quote. I'm getting it all
rising
mixed up
tide
here.
lifts all boats.
Exactly. Thank you. But we are, these are capitalist businesses that are trying to grow their business. So it's a really interesting space to be in. We're really excited to be a part of it. And we just think there's going to be, the innovation's not going to stop, right? I think it's only beginning.
Yeah, I think
the
it's
shelves
accelerating, at least in some of the categories. And, people often think of, beer as being the most mature in a lot of ways. It is. But what I tell first of all, I'm borrowing your line of, we still have a lot of wood to chop for my team.
Right.
It's kind of more of the same, and that's okay. We're not trying to build up new different things that take away from our focus. But the second thing, the thing I often say is 95% of the U.S. population still don't know that there's anything besides O'Doul's out there.
Right.
And
amazing.
Now I know that number is it's dropping fast, but it's in a lot of ways true. And there's still a lot of, open field, and to some extent it's the Wild West. There's still a lot of unclaimed territory for everybody to have plenty of room. And that hopefully creates a lot of opportunity for greater innovation now that people see that there's actually a market out there.
Yeah. Well, I think the products are only going to get better.
Exactly.
They just really, from a taste profile, price profile, I think wine in particular
it's inevitable.
is going to continue to improve. Yeah. I think you're going to have I think everyone's going to make a non-alcoholic beer. And I think you're going to have a rush of that. And you're going to have national players and you're going to have regional players. Yeah. And you're going to go into we do a fair amount of business at wineries. Mm-hmm. And they want to have a product for people that don't drink. Right. If you went to a brewery or brew pub, and why wouldn't you have your own non-alc beer on tap? Yeah. It makes perfect sense. So, I see all that coming. The spirits to me is very interesting, how that's going to develop. That space to me seems to be probably the most challenging.
It's the toughest space, the large format spirits. Most of them move to the RTD as a defensive measure, but it's the toughest space.
And then some of these aperitifs and things like that are getting really good. They're specialty. So again, we go back to, do we think that people are only going to drink toast? No, I don't think, people are going to come in, they're going to, sometimes I want a beer, sometimes I want a toast, sometimes I want an aperitif, sometimes I want a alcohol-free cocktail. I think we got to improve the word mocktail as an industry. I think someone needs to come up with something a lot more.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people working on that one, but nothing's stuck yet.
Nothing's stuck yet. I know. We really try to push alcohol free, but honestly, it's like every time you push out, there's just this pushback to non-alcoholic, and you can't fight the category, right?
Yeah, no, and we've not done any better. Some people double down and just kind of lean into it, which isn't a bad idea because people understand what the word means. It has a pejorative connotation, but not necessarily. We've kind of stuck with premium beverages as the logo implies because we believe it's true, and it's about choice and what you're gaining, not what you're losing, but also not least of which we just haven't thought of something that's anything better. So Brooks, thank you so much for the time and hearing about you, your backstory, and the story of Toast. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, Chris, thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Take care.
Cheers.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Alcohol Free Radio. We welcome any suggestions or ideas for this podcast and other content that we share with the Better Roads community. So please reach out to us on social media, on our site at betterroads.com, or via email at hello@betterroads.com. And it's been great to be with you here all together. Take care.